What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. APW Sports signing in. And week 9 of the NFL season has concluded. This has been a crazy season, and I like it this way because you really don't have no clear-cut favorite as an MVP, Super Bowl teams. I like it when it's a more balanced NFL. So I like it this way. And then I hope this stays that way. As we're heading into week 10, it's time to give my power rankings for this week. But without further ado, let's dive into it. All right, guys, this is the list from last week, week 9. Has teams moved up? Has teams moved down? Well, let's figure that out. Let's get into these rankings. All right, before I do that, you guys already know the rules that I play by. You don't play football, you don't move. So the teams that had a bad week will be the Denver Broncos. I had them at C. They stay there. The Detroit Lions didn't play football. I had them at A. They stay there. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I had them at an S tier. They stay there. And the San Francisco 49ers, I had them at an A tier. They stay there. You don't play football, you don't get a chance to move in rankings. So let's just get into it. Next, we get the Arizona Cardinals. They finally get Kyler Murray back this week, but still, this is just not a very good football team at this point. As we stand right now, we all know they're basically in tank mode with the trading of Josh Dobbs to the Minnesota Vikings. So this football team, let's just say it, they're basically in full out tank mode. Next, we are going to have the Atlanta Falcons. I had them at a B. I honestly think they're an average football team. I wish they would get more of Bijan Robinson involved, and that defense did not look good against Josh Dobbs and the Minnesota Vikings. A team that basically is just winging it with the Josh Dobbs who just got in, and the Falcons defense did not prevail very well at all. And I've been tempted to drop it to a C, but I'm going to leave them at a B. Next is the Baltimore Ravens. Domination. Their defense looks extremely dominant. Offensively, they ran the football like crazy, and this has been a very good football team over the last couple of weeks. They've been basically taking down some of the top teams or the top record teams in the NFC with the Lions and now the Seahawks. So this Ravens team has just looked very dominant over the last couple of weeks, and I would give them at the S tier. Next is the Buffalo Bills. I hate to do it, but this Buffalo Bills team they are underperforming. I think at this point, they're one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL. And to think that I had them as my Super Bowl pick heading into 2023, and they have not performed up to it at all. So I'm going to have the Buffalo Bills team at a B. Carolina Panthers, still one of the worst teams in football. I'm going to have them at a D. This team is just young, and it's just young and not there. Next is my Chicago Bears. The turnovers, it just killed them. Turnovers, and they basically beat themselves. It was crazy. I'll leave my reactions to the Bears and the Cards, but this Bears team is just a disappointment as well. I didn't think it would still been this bad, but Lord, injuries don't help either. Next is the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to keep them at an S. I think they're finally starting to find the rhythm offensively. Joe Mixon has been more involved. I like what this defense is doing, especially up front. They basically shut down the Buffalo Bills run game Sunday night. And I really like how this team is just starting to pick it up. Is reminding of the 2 years previous where they start slow and then Joe Burrow starts to play into form. He starts to play at that MVP level, and this team defensively just starts to rise up. And it's reminding me of those same Bengals teams that go on these runs. Next, I'm going to have the Cleveland Browns. Honestly, I'm going to put the Cleveland Browns in the A. At defense, dominant, shutting out the Arizona Cardinals. And offensively, I think once they start to get some things clicking with Deshaun Watson being back healthy in this offense, I think it could be some very dangerous football from the Cleveland Browns. Really, really scary team to think of going ahead if that quarterback situation improves and the play improves. Next is the Dallas Cowboys. I had them in an A. I'm going to drop them to an A, even though that was a very close game. I think some of the things they could have done were their own doing as far as clock management, especially late in that ball game. There's some of the mistakes that they made. Their defense, honestly, has started to regress a little bit. Offensively, they gave themselves chances to win that ball game. It was just the clock management and some of the mistakes that they made. It was a really close, and I think they lived up to the hype of that ball game. It was a really good ball game, but somebody has to win it. Next is the Green Bay Packers. I had them at a C. No, I had them at a D, excuse me. I'm going to move them up to a C this week. They looked very solid against the Rams. Even though the Rams were without Stafford, I think that made a bigger of a difference as how that ball game went, especially with the Packers been struggling like they have the past couple of weeks. But for them getting in a much-needed win at home, I'm going to get them to a C. Next is the Houston Texans. I had them at a C. I moved them to a B, excuse me. CJ Stroud. I'm of course, I'm going to be a little bit biased as he's an Ohio State Buckeye quarterback. And I knew this was going to come. I seen the accuracy he had at Ohio State. I knew he was going to end up turning out to be the better prospect as we speak right now than Bryce Young. Not to knock Bryce Young, but as we talk about throwing the football, CJ Stroud has it. He's very accurate. He's very... I like the moxie that he's played with. I've seen it at Ohio State. I'm just impressed at what he's doing. 14 TDs to only 1 interception throughout a rookie year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, bucket. Next, we are going to go to the Indianapolis Colts. I had them at a C. I'm going to keep them there. I'm still not a big believer in this football team. They did just play the Carolina Panthers, so it makes somewhat of a difference when you're not playing a very good football team. But, I don't know. Something is missing with this football team. I just think something isn't there. I think they need a few more weapons. I think that is part of the reason why I don't have a big belief in them. But I'm going to keep them in a C. Next is the Kansas City Chiefs. That defense, I've always thought that defense could be the downfall. At this point right now, it is the strength of this football team. Amidst Patrick Mahomes and the weapons are not really playing at their highest level, that defense has been stout all season. And I've always thought that could be a downfall, but it's been the strength of this football team. This is why I have them in the S tier. Next is the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a tough team to gauge, but I'm going to have them at a B. I like what they're doing with Austin Eckler. This defense is finally starting to show some form, even though the last 2 weeks have been the Bears and the Jets. But I like what they've started to improve to as a defense. And offensively, Justin Herbert hasn't been at his best. He's still dealing with that finger injury. But I think this football team is starting to finally find something, and they're getting some momentum. Next to the LA Rams, are going to keep them at a C. It didn't help them that they had Matthew Stafford out. I'm not going to gauge this team, but only so much when you have Rippon in there instead of Stafford playing football. And I just think that this Rams team, I think they've been right where I thought they would be at the point of this season. So I'm going to keep them in a C. The Raiders, I'm going to move the Raiders to a C. I think I always said this. McDaniels, problem. Getting rid of Derek Carr, problem. For Jimmy G, no. Aiden O'Connell went in there and they played some solid football, albeit against the Giants, but you have to do what you have to do with the team in front of you. And I like the mentality and the approach that the interim head coach, Antonio Pierce, has brought to this football team. I like the fire. I like some of the things that he does for this football team. And I think they can improve a little bit going forward, especially when McDaniels out of the door. So I'm going to have the Raiders at a C. The Dolphins, I'm going to drop them to a B until they can beat a good football team. They are 0-3 against teams with winning records, or good football teams, and 6-0 against the losing teams. You're not going to win in this league beating only bad teams. You're not going to be a successful football team beating only bad teams. They lost to the Bills. They got blew out by the Bills. They got beat by the Chiefs. And it's just, this football team just cannot beat the good teams. Can't do it. So I am going to have them at a B. Next is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. I'm keeping them at a B right now. This team is surprisingly 5-4 right now. And they did it last week with Josh Dobbs, who just got to the team on Tuesday. And he looked really solid, and they already named him the starter for this upcoming week. I like what the Vikings are doing. The defense has been playing a lot better, even though the Falcons did score some points, but they've been improving on defense and at offense. And this has been without Justin Jefferson as well, Cam Akers, who tore his Achilles. I'm liking what the Vikings are doing. Next, Patriots, boom. It's just not a very good football team at all. Is Belichick lost his touch? Starting to look like it. Saints, I'm going to have them to a B. Now, they weren't able to run the football, but I just think that defense made a ton of plays against the Bears. And that has been somewhat the strength of this football team this season, as the secondary and the front four, even though the front four was really held in check by the Bears, but that secondary just got after people the entire game. And I'm going to put the Saints at a B for the moment. The Giants, they're one of the more bottom teams in the NFL. I'm not going to say they're the worst, but and then on top of that, you have two quarterbacks you're out. Your first two quarterbacks are out. Jones with the torn ACL and Tyrod Taylor is on IR. So this is just not a very good football team right now. And 2022, starting to look like a fluke. Next is the New York Jets. I had them at a B and want to drop them to a C. Zach Wilson even though he's not playing the greatest, that offensive line is just not very good either. And if it wasn't for that defense at least keeping them afloat, who knows what this Jets team would be. The offensive line has been ridden by injuries, and it just has not been protecting them. What they let up, 7 or 8 sacks last night against the Chargers? It's not a very good offensive line at all. And that was one of the problems coming into the season with the Jets, and it's still a problem. Not a good offensive line. Next, the Eagles. I'm going to keep the Eagles at an S. They're still proven to be the best team in the NFC. Jalen Hurts is starting to look very comfortable. That defense, it kind of regressed just a little bit last week against the Cowboys. They made the plays when they needed to make them. And offensively, I think they are starting to gain some rhythm running the football. So I'm going to keep the Eagles at an S. Next, we're going to have the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a tough team to gauge too, but I had them at a B, keeping them there. I'm liking what I'm starting to see out of Pickett. He's starting to improve a little bit more. Defensively, they've been a lot better with Cam Hayward back in the middle of that defense, even though they took an injury to Holcomb. But I'm starting to like what I'm seeing from this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I'm starting to like what I'm seeing, especially defensively, and I finally starting to get the running game going with Warren and Harris. So I kept them at a B. Next is the Seattle Seahawks. I had them at a B. And the way the way they looked against Baltimore, Geno Smith has just not been at that level that he was in 2022. He just hasn't played like in most of the year. He just hasn't. And that defense, they got toe up in the running game by the Ravens. Toe up. And the Seahawks right now, they're playing like an average football team, despite some of the things they have offensively and some of the pieces they had defensively, just not living up to some of the preseason hype that they had. Next is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to keep them at a C for now. They did go explode a little bit against the Texans. They weren't able to pull away with that game. Defense let some things up late to C.J. Stroud. They weren't able to get some interceptions on him. So, and Mayfield, I don't know what to make of Baker Mayfield at this point. It's like he has good moments and he has bad moments. He did not play terrible, but I just don't know what to make of this Buccaneers football team right now. Next is the Tennessee Titans. I had them at a C. I'm going to keep them there. I personally think Will Levis, I think he's going to be fine at the quarterback position. He's going to continue to grow. He's still only that was his first career start. And I just think once he continues to improve with his football team and once they finally get some real weapons outside of Hopkins around him, I think you're going to start to see Will Levis improve as a quarterback. He's looked solid throughout the first 2 games. We're interested to see what Derrick Henry is going to do at the offseason, but that's another topic. But defensively, they play solid. Jeffrey Simmons has been a really good presence for him. So I'm going to have them at a C, but I believe that Will Levis can improve and make something out of this team going forward versus what Ryan Tannehill brought him. Next is the Washington Commanders with the much-needed win over the Patriots. I'm going to put this team at a B. I like some of the things that they did defensively, even though getting rid of Sweat and Young. I like what they can do offensively with some of the weapons that they have in McLaurin and Samuel from the Ohio State, even though Samuel has been out. But in the offense with Robinson, I just think they're an average football team as well. I still believe in them just average. But these are my rankings for Week 10. Leave this video a like. Comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel. APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great and excellent day. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.